call didn't disconnect when my father thought it had. I had dialed him from my grandmother's old kitchen, needing clarity on a minor warranty issue, when the distinct sound of his jacket rustling came through the speaker, followed immediately by my mother's voice and then his own. The audio was crystal clear. She is dead weight. Always has been. I stood paralyzed, my fingers still gripping the handle of the drawer I had been rummaging through. They laughed, discussing a future I was never intended to be part of, plans that revolved entirely around the property my grandmother had gifted me. I didn't speak up. I didn't redial. I remained silent, but only long enough to determine exactly how this narrative would conclude. From a young age, I understood that affection in our household had strings attached. Our residence was situated on a cramped avenue in a blue-collar district just outside the city. Limits, cracked plaster, thin partitions, and a dining table that wobbled, regardless of how much cardboard my father jammed under the leg. Harold and Marilyn referred to it as home, yet it never embodied one. Every dispute, every slammed cupboard, every mention of what they had forfeited, seeped into the floorboards like stale smoke. "Do you think we have cash to incinerate?" My father would snap whenever I required supplies for school. "Be thankful we keep a roof over your head." I was, or at least I attempted to be. Yet every Friday afternoon, I would monitor the clock until I could retreat to Grandma, Lorraine's cottage across town. It was a tranquil lane with a sprawling porch and a garden that perpetually smelled of sage and fresh earth. She would greet me at the threshold with an embrace that didn't constrict when I inhaled, inquiring about my week as if my response actually held weight. Her space felt like oxygen after years of holding my breath underwater. In that sanctuary, I learned that tenderness was not a defect. I discovered that silence didn't need to be weaponized. She taught me to cultivate soil, to balance a ledger, to construct a life layer by layer, rather than resenting the universe for not bestowing one upon me. "You are competent, Annabelle," she would insist. "Never let anyone persuade you otherwise." When she died suddenly, the sorrow scooped me out. The reading of her testament shocked everyone else. She bequeathed me the estate, a fully paid-off asset valued $980,000, and left my parents a modest sum they exhausted in mere weeks. Following that, they began referring to my residence as the family estate, as if the title deed were merely a recommendation. My mother drifted through rooms, judging the paint shades I had selected. My father hauled his ancient armchair into the main living space and planted it like a conqueror's flag. I convinced myself they were mourning. I told myself allowing them to lodge for a bit was the moral choice. A bit turned into years. They never donated a dime toward the taxes, utilities, or repairs, yet they never lacked opinions. They spoke of renovations I had never authorized. They dropped clues about how certain families pool all their resources. And when they plotted their fantasy vacation to Europe, they drifted the concept of leveraging the house's equity to finance it. "You are prospering," my mother said breezily, her silverware scratching against her porcelain. "It is time you reciprocate." I refused to take out a loan for them. However, I did fund the majority of their excursion out of guilt. It was so ingrained it felt like reflex. They departed the country grinning, draped in new coats they had purchased for the journey, promising gifts. I remained behind, attempting to believe that benevolence wasn't identical to being exploited. The afternoon everything altered was so mundane, it almost felt like a prank. I had spent the morning showcasing properties across the city and returned to a persistent drip under the kitchen basin, a minor leak my dad swore he had repaired months prior. I needed the warranty data for the fixture, one of the rare items he had actually fitted himself. So, I phoned him. Just a basic ring, a logistical query. Nothing that should have imploded my entire existence. He picked up from somewhere raucous, clinking goblets, traffic hum, merriment. "We are heading to supper," he stated, sounding annoyed. I had intruded. Checked the bureau in the study. Should be under kitchen. I expressed gratitude, told him to relish his evening. He grunted something unintelligible. Then came the crinkle of cloth, heavy steps, the muffled resonance of my mother's tone. I waited for the disconnect. There should have been a disconnect, but instead I heard my mother inquire, "Who was that, Annabelle?" "Her," he said, as if the name itself depleted him. Always some issue with that house. My breath hitched. They hadn't terminated the call. "Well," my mother sighed. "And that is what occurs when she gets handed a property she didn't merit." "Your mother should have willed it to us. We would have utilized it intelligently." I clutched the edge of the laminate. My grandmother had faith in me. She knew precisely what she was executing. Hearing them revise that reality tore at something profound within me. My father's tone sharpened. Once we return, we are going to sit her down regarding our retirement. She needs to grasp that house is our safety net. It is absurd. It is only in her name. My chest constricted. I had always surmised they resented my possession. I had never conceived they possessed a scheme. My mother dropped her volume, but not sufficiently. She feels culpability so effortlessly. Just nudge a bit. She will sign whatever we require. Cite medical costs. That always captures her. My stomach plummeted. That wasn't concern. That was tactics. And if she pushes back, my father continued nonchalantly, remind her what we forfeited for her. She is in our debt. By next year, the title will bear our names. My ears buzzed. My vision narrowed, but they weren't done. She has always been dead weight, my father stated, as if finally voicing the fact he had suppressed for decades. From the second she was birthed. The chuckle that followed, his first, then hers, snapped something cleanly inside me like the fracture of a dry branch. I don't recall terminating the connection. I only recall sliding onto the tiles, spine against the cupboards, the leaking fixture tapping a sluggish cadence, while the gravity of every memory reorganized itself. Every critique decision, every guilt trip, every mention of sacrifice. None of it had been affection. It had been leverage. I replayed their dialogue repeatedly until the shame morphed into heat. Then the heat refined into lucidity. If they viewed me as deadweight, then I didn't owe them a thing. I dried my face, rose, and retrieved my laptop. I didn't shriek or challenge them. I didn't dispatch a text or return the call. I did something far more perilous in their view. I commenced to organize. For 3 days, I drifted like a phantom through my own existence. I called out of work, feigning a flu I didn't possess because I couldn't trust my voice not to fracture in front of anyone. Every time I attempted to brew tea or reply to a message, my mind looped the same phrase. She has always been dead weight. Spoken so casually, it might as well have been the forecast. By the fourth dawn, the numbness splintered. I opened my computer and entered one name, Vivian Hale, a family estate solicitor I had collaborated with through clients. Sharp, composed, exacting. The sort of individual who didn't blink at chaotic dynamics. Vivian didn't react when I informed her the estate was deeded solely to me. She didn't react when I detailed that my parents had resided there rent-free for years. But when I recited the sentences I had overheard over the live wire, her jaw clenched just fractionally. You are under no statutory duty to shelter your parents, she stated. The asset is yours. Their occupancy grants them no title. And if you desire to terminate that agreement, you can simply record everything and don't alert them until you are prepared. Those sentences, plain and factual, felt like someone had unlatched a window in a chamber. I didn't realize I had been suffocating within. That afternoon, I phoned Ethan Shaw, one of the few associates who had always regarded me as a peer. I require a private transaction, I said. No listing, no placards, rapid. He didn't inquire why. I know 2 private investors searching for something in your district. We can strike around 980 if the schedule aligns. Precisely the figure I required. Once the dominoes were positioned, I moved with velocity. I walked through every chamber with a tablet, establishing 3 classifications, mine, theirs, ambiguous. I didn't desire a single allegation later. Cartons formed orderly lines across the timber floors, my possessions sealed and tagged for a transporter. This stacked distinctly with a strategy already coalescing in my brain. I leased a storage locker under their identities and prepaid 6 months. I organized a relocation crew to manage the transfer the identical day. My own items would be shipped to a furnished temporary flat 2 hours away. Then came the remainder of the logistics. New banking profiles, revised passcodes, a fresh mobile digits, a new email. Each chore felt like severing a rope that had tethered me to my parents my entire existence. On the ultimate evening before the haulers arrived, I paced slowly through the residence. The vacant walls reverberated in a manner that made the entire location feel foreign. In the yard, the blooms Grandma Lorraine taught me to sow were just commencing to unfurl. I crouched down, brushing one of the leaves. I am not the burden you assumed, I whispered, unsure whether I was addressing them or vowing something to myself. The following dawn, when the van pulled away with my crates, I didn't glance back. I had evaporated, quietly, lawfully, totally. My parents touched down on a balmy Thursday afternoon in early autumn. The sort of day where the sun hangs heavy, and the atmosphere smells faintly of parched foliage. I knew their itinerary because they had forwarded it to me weeks prior, anticipating a chauffeur. I visualized them disembarking the aircraft, rejuvenated from vineyard tours and river cruises, hauling baggage plastered in decals from towns I had never visited. They had zero concept of the reality they were re-entering. At exactly 4:12 p.m., my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Dawson, messaged me a single phrase, "They have arrived." I sat in my sedan outside my new rental 2 hours distant, palms gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned ivory. I didn't need to be at the property. I knew precisely what was transpiring beat by beat. They would turn into the drive still chuckling about their voyage. They would note my vehicle was absent and presume I was running tasks. They would haul their luggage to the entry, balancing shopping sacks stuffed with trinkets I had indirectly funded. Then Harold would retrieve his key. He would insert it into the mechanism. He would twist it, and he would hear nothing but a mute, hollow resistance. The visualization steadied me. I shut my eyes and inhaled the tranquility of my new life. Later, Mrs. Dawson phoned. I picked up on the initial ring. "Annabelle, they are losing it," she murmured, attempting not to chuckle. "Your father attempted the key 4 times. Your mother is pounding on the wood like someone is interior." I could envision it so vividly, their skepticism curdling into bewilderment, their bewilderment spoiling into fury. "What are they doing currently?" I queried, my tone too serene even for me. "They are circling the house, inspecting panes." "Oh, your dad is declaring you must have altered the bolts without consent." "Annabelle, darling, this is something else." It was, and it was merely the commencement. An hour later, I received my initial voicemail. "Annabelle, what the hell is transpiring? The key doesn't function. Ring me immediately." The subsequent one from my mother landed 5 minutes later. "Hi, Nana. Sweetheart, this must be a confusion. We are concerned. Where are you? Why is the residence vacant? Please ring us." Not a single fissure of introspection, not even a gram of accountability, just stunned that the universe wasn't bowing to them the way it always had. Then came the voicemail I had been anticipating. "We located your little note. A burden did this." Really? Is that intended to be humorous? "You cannot just vend our domicile out from under us. Anticipate a solicitor." Every phrase was saturated with entitlement, each word validating I had executed the correct move. They didn't call again that evening, but I knew they would intensify. I didn't have to wait long. At 9 the next morning, my mobile vibrated with a text from my workplace. "Your parents are here. They are shouting." The manager asked them to exit. "Do you require assistance?" Heat surged up my collar, even after everything. They still believed humiliation would frighten me into submission. I phoned the office to repent, and my manager said gently, "Take all the time you require, Annabelle. They won't be permitted back in." It was the initial time someone outside my grandmother had fully taken my flank. That evening, my new digits, shared with almost no one, rang. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity yanked at me. "Tomorrow," my father's voice said, clipped and boiling with suppressed rage. "Tauki Maple Street Cafe. If you don't appear, we are going to your job again, and we won't be civil." He disconnected before I could reply. My pulse hammered in my ears, but terror didn't arrive. Something colder did, a clarity I hadn't felt since hearing that open line. This time, I wouldn't appear as their daughter. I would appear as the woman who had finally learned how to defend herself. The next morning, I arrived at the bistro 15 minutes late intentionally. The venue was bustling. Espresso grinders hissing, cutlery clinking, low discussions weaving together. A public zone, a secure zone. Harold and Marilyn sat in a corner booth. My mother looked more diminished than I recalled. My father looked more furious. Both stiffened when they spotted me. "You finally opted to show," my father snapped. I placed my phone on the surface, deliberately letting the action speak for itself. "I am here," I said. "But I won't be braided. Say what you came to say. What did you do to our sanctuary?" My mother burst out, her voice quavering. "Why would you vend it without informing us?" "We resided there. It was never your sanctuary," I said softly. "You resided there because I permitted it, and you repaid that by plotting to seize it." My father leaned in. "We were debating our future. You completely misconstrued." Before he could conclude, I tapped my screen. Their voices poured out. The recording flooded the corner booth. "She is dead weight. Once she signs the house over, we are set. Use guilt. She falls for that. She owes us." My mother's hand flew to her lips. My father's face drained of pigment, then flushed to profound crimson. "How dare you tape us?" "You phoned me," I cut in. "You forgot to hang up." I heard every syllable, and it demonstrated exactly where I rank in this clan. My mother started weeping, her shoulders vibrating just enough to look persuasive to the unskilled eye. Once that would have functioned. Once I would have folded instantly, not now. I paid the accounts. I maintained the structure. I subsidized a vacation I couldn't even afford for myself. And you still viewed me as a burden to handle. So here's what is going to occur. Their weeping quieted. Their respiration stilled. I am finished. No more cash. No more assistance. No more guilt. If you contact my job again, I will pursue legal action. If you appear at my residence, you will meet security. If you persist in harassing me, you will meet my counsel. You can't just slice us out of your life, my father hissed. I am not slicing you out, I said, rising. You pushed me out a long time ago. I am just finally walking away. My mother whispered, where will we go? What are we supposed to do? That, I said with a steady calm I didn't know I possessed, is something you will have to resolve on your own. For the first time, I retrieved my phone, slid it into my purse and stepped out of the booth. Neither of them reached for me. Neither called my moniker. When I walked out into the crisp autumn breeze, I didn't look back. In the weeks after the cafe showdown, the silence was almost confusing. No voicemails, no emails, no uninvited cameos at my office, just quiet. Heavy at first, then strangely tranquil. I moved through my new townhouse in Richmond like someone learning how to inhale correctly for the first time. The space was smaller, simpler, but every angle belonged to me. No lingering friction, no old recliner facing the television like a throne. No footsteps that made my stomach knot. I returned to labor with a focus I hadn't felt in years. My clients noted it, my boss noted it, even I noted it. Without constant emotional siphon, I had energy remaining for my career, for my companions, for myself. Therapy assisted too, Dr. Caroline. Brooks guided me through the years of smudged boundaries and taught me terms I'd never let myself speak aloud. Financial exploitation, emotional maneuvering, coercive guilt. Naming things didn't delete them, but it stripped them of their dominance. One afternoon, while organizing a carton of old documents, I discovered a small envelope scripted in Grandma Lorraine's hand. I had read the note inside once before, but this time the phrases hit differently. Never doubt your value, she wrote. Never let anyone take from you what you have earned. For the first time, I believed her. When the local civic center asked if I would host a seminar for first-time buyers on protecting themselves financially, I said yes without wavering. Teaching others what I had learned the hard way felt like stitching something torn back together. I wasn't the burden. I was the one who finally put the load down. A year after everything unraveled, I stood in my new yard, smaller than my grandmother's, but blossoming the same way she taught me. The wind was gentle, the sky expansive, and for the first time, my life felt like it finally fit. I didn't know if my parents would ever evolve, and I wasn't waiting for them to. Peace didn't come from repairing them. It came from choosing myself. If you have ever had to walk away to protect your own well-being, you are not alone. Share your story in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from Winds of Thought.